Hi, welcome to this video. In this video I will show you how to make a China bracelet using these porcelain, these China beads. I have chosen China beads with those black decorations in the shape of flowers. And I also chose some beads that are black and they also have some flower decorations on their surface. I don't know if they are so easily visible. And I also chose this silver metal bead for the center of my bracelet. And besides the beads, I will also use this bead cap for the end of the bracelet and some other types of bead caps for my beads. I will close the bracelet with this toggle clasp, and we shall also need some findings, so I will use for the ends of my bracelet these bead caps which mask the knots and the crimps at the end of the bracelet. Some crimps. And of course the jump rings. So if you create handmade jewelry, the jump ring will be the finding that you will use the most often. So you use jump rings for all types, almost all types of jewelry that you create. For bracelets, necklaces, anklets, most of the, even for earrings, almost all jewelry types require these jump rings. And of course we shall need some string, some thread. I chose some nylon thread, black nylon thread, and to assemble all these pieces we need the tools. As tools I will use a pair of chain nose pliers. As you can see, they have a pointed tip so that I can grab small findings, small items with the pliers. For the jump rings, I will also use a jump ring opener or a second pair of pliers. I will need a big eye beading needle for the beads, to put the beads on the thread. For small items, I can use a pair of pincers if I can't grab the findings with my fingers. And for the thread I will need a pair of scissors and a lighter. In order to know how long the bracelet should be, I will use the measuring tape. So I have a measuring tape here which has both centimeters and inches. So these are the tools, the findings and the beads that I will use for the bracelet. So if you're ready, let's begin. The first step is to measure the length of the bracelet. So I will put the measuring tape around my wrist to see how long the bracelet should be. As you can see, it's 6 inches long, about 16 centimeters. If you make a bracelet for men, of course you can add 1 more inch or 1.5 inches. It's always useful, if you know for whom you make the bracelet, to measure the wrist so that the dimensions are as precise as possible. So let's begin with the thread. So if I had 6 inches, the length of the bracelet, like this, I will add a few more inches so that I can make all the knots and put the beads on the thread. So I have cut a bit of thread which is about 12 inches long, so about 30-31 centimeters long. Of course you can cut it shorter, but I chose 12 inches so that I can have enough thread to do all the operations of knotting and of putting the beads and so on. I will take the big eye beading needle and the first step is to create a knot at the end of the thread. This knot will be masked by my bead end. As you can see, this bead cap here at the end of my bracelet has a hole here in the middle. So the knot that I create must not pass through this orifice here. So it has to be larger than this orifice. Otherwise, the thread will come out of the bead cap. So in this case, I will make not one but several knots to make sure that the knots do not open and that they are large enough to stop the thread from coming out. Beside the knot, you can also add something else, and I will show you a safe method to make sure that the thread does not come out. So you can make many knots like these so that they are large enough that they do not come out through this orifice of the bead end. Let's say this is the knot that we have created. To make sure that this end does not open, I will burn it a little bit because it's nylon. It will melt and it will stick to the knot so that the knot has less chances to open. Then I will take the thread, put it on my big eye beading needle like this. You have to take into consideration that sometimes the thread can be cut a little bit at the point where it goes through the needle because the needle is a bit sharp inside here. So it can sometimes cut the thread a little bit. So using more thread than necessary ensures that if the thread is damaged here, you can just cut it off. And now I will take one of those crimps and put it on the needle, on the thread, and it will stop, as you can see, in my knot. So let's see from a closer distance. As you can see, I have the knot and the crimp has stopped right next to my knot. Now I will take the pliers and press on the crimp like this. As you can see, now I made the crimp flat this way, and the crimp will prevent the thread from slipping out because we have this knot here. And now we can put the bead end cap. So I will take the needle and I will take one of those bead caps like this, and I will put the bead cap on my thread like this. And as you can see, let's see again from a closer distance. As you can see, inside here we have the knot and the crimp. Because I pressed on the crimp, it has become flat and it is larger than the orifice of my bead end, so it will not come out. So this thread will have very small chances to come out of this bead end. That means that we can now close the bead end. I will use the pliers to close the bead end, like this. This way, and now, as you can see, the knot and the crimp are both masked inside my bead end here. And now we should add the toggle clasp. I will take one of those jump rings. As I've told you, the jump rings are the most used type of finding in handmade jewelry. I've opened the jump ring. I will put it through the ring of my bead end, like this. And now I will take the toggle clasp and also put it on my jump ring, this way. And now I can close it. I will grab the jump ring with the pliers and I will close it with the jump ring opener. This way. Now let's see the result. So as you can see, I have the bead cap. Inside the bead cap I have the crimp with a knot, which are no longer visible because I closed the bead cap. Then I have the jump ring and the toggle clasp. So the end of the bracelet is finished, the closure of the bracelet. And now let's continue by adding the beads. So as you can see, the thread has the tendency to come out of the needle because the needle has this big space here, like this. So now let's begin by adding the beads to the bracelet. I will put a bead cap like this at the end, so it looks like a flower, but it's a little bit longer and it's narrower here, so it creates shape of V, which looks better for the end of the bracelet. So it gives the shape of the it gives an end to our bracelet by this shape of V. So I will put first of all the bead cap for the end of my bracelet, and then I will start adding the beads. I will begin with the porcelain beads. Now I will put another cap, a smaller cap. I will put one cap and another cap, as you can see. They are placed back to back so that they can cover two different beads. This way. So as you can see, the first bead is covered by the longer bead cap and a small bead cap. I'll put 2 more bead caps, another porcelain bead, 2 more bead caps, a porcelain bead, a bead cap, this way. And now let's put a larger bead cap because we are approaching the middle of our bracelet. I will use the larger bead cap because of the black beads, which are slightly larger than the white beads, like this. And now we have reached the middle bead, which is a metal bead, so I chose this metal bead for the center of the bracelet, this way. And from now on we must be attentive so that the bracelet is symmetrical. Again, I will put a large bead cap, the black bead, another large bead cap, like this. And now we'll follow the white china beads. And the bead caps. And the last bead cap, the longer bead cap, like this. And now we have finished adding the beads to the bracelet. All we have to do now is continue by adding the bead cap at the end, the bead end, and the toggle clasp. So in order to do this, I will open this bead end here like this so that I can work inside of the bead end. I will put the bead end on my needle like this. I'll put one of those crimps on the needle, this way, and now I can remove the needle. Now the beads should not be too tight together, but also not too loose, so they should have a bit of space in between, but they should also not be too far away from each other, because otherwise the thread will be visible. So now I will close the crimp that I have here, but taking into consideration that I must leave a millimeter on the thread so that the beads can move a bit. And I will press on this crimp like this so that it blocks the movement of the thread. And above the crimp I will make a few knots so that the crimp does not slide from the thread. This is why I opened this bead end here, so that I can make those, that I have access and can make the knots above the crimp. So as you can see, I made the first knot above the crimp to block the crimp from moving up and down on the thread. So let's make another knot. And I'll make one last knot and then I will cut the thread. This way. Now, as you can see, I have these knots above my crimp. And I will cut the thread like this and burn the end of the thread with the lighter. And now I can close the bead end so that our crimp and the knot is no longer visible. This way. I'll take the pliers and close. Like this. And now I will attach the toggle clasp. I will take the jump ring, open the jump ring, this way. I'll put the jump ring on the bead end, and I will also put the toggle clasp here. Like this. And now I will close the jump ring. This way. And we can now open and close the clasp like this. And let's see what the finished bracelet looks like. So this is our finished bracelet. Now let's see what it looks like on the wrist. So this is what the finished bracelet looks like. On the wrist. So I hope you liked this video, and thank you for watching.